Thank you very much, and I welcome you once more on this session of ex-convicts management. And we're going to go and follow, especially with respect to the mental effects of imprisonment to a convict. Now, imprisonment has profound and most long lasting mental health effects. The prison environment is associated with high levels of stress, isolation, and in many cases, a sense of hopelessness. These factors can exacerbate or lead to serious mental health conditions which highlighted in the previous session, part two, and I'm going to make at least a continuous because the effects of the mental issues or the effects of imprisonment to an individual are so diverse that we may not exhaust its discussion. And secondly, also, we need to understand that anything that affects a human being evolves into different ways in life that we may not be able to grasp in its entirety. But if we can be able to handle it at the initial stage, then we should be able to at least give a cover and save the society from the effects of imprisonment. Now, we discussed earlier about the mood disorders. Mood disorders, mood swings, anger management, and all that which I mentioned earlier. Now, studies show an increase of mood disorders among incarcerated individuals, such as depression, anxiety, anger, being defensive, and bipolar disorders. And you will notice that whenever somebody has come out of imprisonment or confinement, he takes to be in a sized mood or in a situation where he's enclosed that he cannot open for fear that he might cause another effect or commit another offense which will lead him into custody. So they are always very defensive, and whenever you hurt them even a little, they tend to be very angry because they are angry with themselves and the society at large. So these conditions are often aggravated by factors like overcrowding, lack of privacy, and constant surveillance by the officials or prison officers. Because there is constant surveillance of security issues, both day and night. And all of us, because of the government, which has announced on various occasions, we know that prisons is an overcrowded place. And thirdly, there is no privacy in prison. You cannot say this is my personal property, this is my residence, this is my room, this is my this. Everything there is open. You do it openly, and you cannot hide anything. And that is why there is constant search of even up to the private parts of the inmates, and therefore people are handled in so inhuman ways, and many of them are affected by that kind of environment. Now, the other one is existential crisis and identity shifts. Incarceration frequently leads to an existential crisis where prisoners question their identities, past actions, and future goals, which may cause feelings of worthlessness and hopelessness always affect them. Personal identity. As long as you have been associated with crime and disconnected from the society, you no longer belong to that society. And therefore, the question of who am I or what did I do that caused me to be extended or to be excommunicated from the society? When you are delineated from the persons you have dwelt with for long, you become offended and start questioning the person of yourself. And that is actually your identity. It is not the persons, the community that start questioning you, who you are, but the prisoner himself or me as a person starts questioning, who am I? Do I still have hope in future? If somebody, for example, has been in prison for 100 years or 50 years or those number of years, even the person who has been in prison for 6 months has to question himself as to why he has gone through that extent. For the first time, I need to ask this question. Don't we have systems where we can reconcile within the society? The issues of imprisonment, first of all, affects the problem of love and discussion in the society. The authorities have given us the alternative dispute resolution management systems within our own selves, including the Nyumbakumi, the neighborhoods, discussion forums that are there, so that we can be able to solve our issues. But whenever an issue occurs, even the slightest one, and then somebody rushes to report to the police station on something that we could sort out, breeds a lot of dejection, mistrust in the society, and people no longer live trusting one another. And so when these things occur now, questions of who am I arises in the mind of the convicted person. The other one is social withdrawal and emotional numbing, which somehow party I mentioned a little bit earlier. Prisoners often develop emotional numbing. That is, you feel some numbness. You no longer have that effect of being loved or pain. You have like withstood all kind of things, and there is nothing really you can feel about whatever happens in your life. And so even if somebody threatens you with going to the prisons or with any whatever allegations, in as much as there is fear in you, but you fear nothing at the end of the day because you have gone through it, so you feel numb in any situation that comes in your life. So you tend to withdraw socially as coping mechanisms to adapt to the prison environment. This detachment can make post-release integration challenging. And many of them, sometimes when they have come out of it, they confine themselves in their abode, in their homes. They don't associate with people. They are enclosed into their houses. The other one is increased risk of recidivism. Recidivism. Now, psychological adaptations in prison, such as hypervigilance or aggression, may increase recidivism rates upon release as their traits conflict with social norms outside prison. This issue of recidivism is an act or a process where, or a system where ex-convicts get back into the society and start committing the same crimes they were convicted for or they were sentenced with. So because of their effects, mental issues that nobody has been able to help them out of it, they tend to get back into the same problem that they had before because they have not been absorbed well into the society. And this is a person who is the mind, because man is not separate from his mind. So what as a man thinks in his mind, so is he. So if that is how it is, then it is very easy for the person to get back into crime because he was not handled by the society very well, and again he's mentally affected. Now, if you have an ex-convict in your abode, in your society, in the community, in your house, in your family, there are things which you need to avoid. And when reintegrating ex-convicts into society, uh, there are things that we need to avoid with them, actions and attitudes that can hinder their rehabilitations and make re-entry unnecessarily challenging. And these are the things that we need to look at very keenly, so that these are patients who are sick. And whenever you are handling a patient within your vicinity, then you need to handle them with care because they can explode. And so I'm giving a few highlights on what you need to look at and avoid those areas wherever possible. Now, avoid stigmatization. Now, negative labels and judgments can reinforce a sense of rejection. Treat them as individuals first, rather than solely by their past mistakes. Anybody is prone to a mistake. So when you give them a name tag and you keep mentioning the offense that this man was accused of, whether he did it or not, you already have an issue with him and he will never take it lightly. So let us avoid stigmatization and let us always have positive talk with them so that they can approach life very positively. Number two, Overemphasis on background checks. History builds and forms the foundation, but negative history is not something that anybody will enjoy. It only requires very strong people to always say, I'm an ex-convict and I know I came out of it and I am strong. Very few can do that. But wherever possible, avoid overemphasis on background checks. Many ex-convicts struggle to find housing and jobs due to extensive background checks. Reducing this reliance can help them secure stable employment and housing. And I mentioned this when I was talking about a certificate of good conduct, especially in our country, Kenya, that before you get an employment, you must have a clearance from the police. And of course, this has to be connected to the prisons and the judiciary system. Now, if you have had an instance where you have been convicted, according to the structures that we have, then you will only qualify to get a certificate after 20 years. Now, if you are out of custody and you wait for 20 years, what will you be doing within the 20 years so that you get an employment? First and foremost, if you wait for 20 years, if you can manage to do that, then you will still not qualify because you don't have an experience, you have no money to sustain yourself, and there's so much that happens within this time. So it is very important that since you have gone through the system of correction, then you must qualify to get the certificate of good conduct. Why? Because you have gone through the correctional facility and you have been certified as worthy, not just having served the term, but you can be brought back to the society because of the correctional activities that you have been taken through. So when institutions now take us into background checks, where have you been, what have you done before, any criminal history, then that again hinders the ex-convicts from getting back into the society. There is so much bureaucracy, and many of them, once they hear that you have been in custody, whether it was good or not, whether it was by mistake, whatever it is, nobody wants to hear you are not fit to be in the society with them. The other thing is avoid unrealistic parole conditions. Unrealistic parole conditions. Now, some parole requirements like frequent checking or travel restrictions can create unnecessary stress. Flexibility and support are essential for their successful reintegration. Now, parole conditions that you must be able to go through a system or a structure in the authorities for you to qualify to do some work. For example, if I want to go outside the country, first of all, there are systems that I must be go through. So if we avoid these bureaucratic checks and conditions, then I think even the ex-convicts who have been rehabilitated and changed through the prison system can be able to move around and do and bring up their life, because some of them are very strong and can withstand the pressures and then come up and become strong in life, and at some point they become helpful even to the government and the authorities by teaching others on how to live and avoid conflict with the law. Avoid isolation from family and community. I said earlier also, ex-convicts are humans who also need fellowship and oneness, belongingness. So as soon as we start detaching ourselves from them, they feel isolated and unwanted and rejected. So excluding them from family or community events can lead to social withdrawal and isolation, which are risk factors for recidivism. Whenever you have a chief's baraza, it is important to have the ex-convicts come so that they can be able to teach even or speak a word or two to the society and community so that they can enrich and teach them, and even organize forums where they can be able to share a word or two with the youth in the society. So when we involve them in family affairs, involve them in and make fun of this, make fun of imprisonment. For example, if you make light fun of it, they are willing to open up and tell you how they used to do things, how life is very hard, and how they maneuver through, they navigate. They will tell you all kind of stories because they have opened up. Only if you accommodate them within the systems and family activities. And finally, avoid ignoring mental health needs. Many ex-offenders face mental health challenges after prison. Lack of support in this area can make adjustment difficult. Thus, it's important to encourage access to mental health resources. Always go to take them for a mental checkup. Let me tell you, nobody knows that he is abnormal until another person identifies the abnormality in that person. And if you ask any abnormal person or any mad person, if he is mad, they will always tell you you are the one who is mad. So always check and identify the issues, and you can go with them, both of you, to be checked. You know what you're doing, but just go for a medical check and let him get to know his mental condition. Now, these practices promote empathy and acceptance, creating an environment where ex-convicts can rebuild their lives and positively contribute to society. I pray that in this session that I'm taking through, I'm able to build at least a house or two persons so that we will be able to put themselves and enter into the crevices of the society and make ourselves one for a better tomorrow, a better cohesive society, and a lovely community where we build and coexist together as humans of one objective. So shalom and God bless you, and I still welcome you into the next session as we study more about how to manage the ex-convicts. God bless you and have a nice day.